integral element of this culture. Around 200 years ago, there were over 250 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander language groups in Australia. Today, around only 120 Aboriginal languages are still spoken, and many are at risk of being lost. Language provides a connection to culture, stories, spiritualities, rites, ceremonies, and the land. Each language is associated with an area of land and has a deep spiritual significance. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander languages are not just a means of communication. They express cultural knowledge passed down through songlines and spoken stories about everything: law, geography, history, family, and human relationships, religion, childcare, healthcare, caring for country, and basic survival. Cultural knowledge, kinship, songlines, and stories are reliant on language for these important cultural elements to be passed on from generation to generation. It is through language that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people maintain their connection with their ancestors, land, and law. Traditionally, Aboriginal people use songlines and stories in their own language to pass down the law and Dreamtime stories that are the foundations of their cultural beliefs. Over time, the breakdown of language and culture can lead to loss of culture and loss of identity.
Metaphors are words or phrases that compare two things. Unlike a simile, they do not use the words like or as to compare the words. Instead, they state that one thing is another thing. Like in the quote from Shakespeare, "The world is a stage." Metaphors are used in literature, movies, plays, and even in day-to-day speech. You might even find yourself using metaphors without realizing it. Some commonly used metaphors include: love is a battlefield, there's a blanket of clouds, time is a thief, he's a night owl. All these examples compare two things directly. Love is compared to a battle, clouds are compared to blankets, time is compared to a thief, and man is compared to an owl. Of course, we know that a man is not literally an owl, but the comparison helps us to visualize things in a much more vibrant way. How boring would it be to say he likes to stay up late at night on a consistent basis? Other types of metaphors use indirect comparisons. A couple of examples include: work has dried up. Their ideas are difficult to swallow. In these metaphors, you have two steps in the comparison. In the first example, work is not being compared to dried up, but rather to something that can be dried up. You can use your imagination to fill in the comparison. Maybe an empty swimming pool or a dry desert oasis.